Hi, this is David with David's Tutorials, and in today's video I'd like to share with you some of my own memories about my mom. Now my mom, she was born in 1925, and this video is going to be what I know about her from when she was growing up, mostly in the 1930s, because before 1930 she would have been 5 years old and younger, and there's not much about that time. And after that time, when it gets to 1940, she's like in high school. Actually, it gets up to just about 1945 that I'm going to cover in this. She was a child of her times, and in the 1930s, you may remember, this was the Great Depression. So she grew up during the Great Depression. Now, some of the things I remember about what she told me when she was growing up, she remembers, and this was either in Columbia, North Carolina, or it might have been in Wilmington, or it might have been in Raleigh. She was in each of those places. She was born in Raleigh and then later moved to Wilmington, and I believe her grandparents lived in a house in Columbia, North Carolina, and that house is now an Airbnb or just a B&B. And is still there, and I remember visiting it myself when my grandparents moved in there, my mom's parents. One of the things I remember her telling me was there was an ice wagon that would come around town, and she and the other kids would go chasing after the ice wagon and cheering and yay, all whatever they were saying, you know what kids do when they're chasing something. And the ice wagon was horse-drawn. And the Iceman, who had the ice wagon, he would be very friendly to the kids, and he would take his ice pick, and there would be big blocks of ice in the back of the ice wagon, and he would chip off the ice because he would take ice blocks into the houses. He would deliver it, like when I was very young, we had the milkman delivering milk to our house. Well, they had the Iceman delivering ice to the houses at that time. And when he stabbed off the chunks that he would carry into the various houses, of course it would splinter the ice a little bit, and he would take these splinters and he would give them to the kids. And the kids, they would absolutely love this, and they would get it. And of course, in the summertime, it was hot, and they would love to have the ice, and they would run off chattering and cheering and sucking on the ice shards that the Iceman had given them. But what my mom told me was that the reason that the Iceman would come around to the houses was because they had in their houses an ice box. Now, you may know that an ice box is another word for a refrigerator, and today our refrigerators, they're all electric. But back when my mom was growing up, they were not electric. They were ice boxes, and they had a big compartment on the top where this big block of ice went in, and of course hot air rises and cool air descends, and so the cool air would descend and keep whatever was in the bottom part of the ice box cool. And that's what they had back then, was an ice box. Now, one other thing I remember my mom telling me, and this isn't documented in the pictures I'm going to show you here in a few minutes, was she had a younger brother, David, and they were crossing over a river. I can't remember exactly what went on. I do remember that maybe they were down by the river and doing something, and my mom got on her bicycle and she was getting ready to cross over the bridge over the river, and she saw her brother David fall into the river, and he was struggling and he couldn't swim, and he was very young, and so she rode her bicycle down off the bridge and got down to the bank, and she ran into the river, and she pulled him out. And she then took him home, and they got him all dried off, and that was no big deal. Today, parents would have a hissy fit over something like that and just go all bonkers. And in a day like that, it was just one of the dangers of being a child, and everybody, I guess, just accepted it. But she did say that she remembered carrying her little brother David in the basket that was attached to the front handlebars of her bicycle, and they would ride around town that way. And that's two of the memories that I remember my mom telling me about when she was little. But what I'd like to do now is to show you the pictures from my mom's first photo album that she put together, probably in the 1980s, from all the old, she used to have huge albums. 4 or 5 of them were about that thick, 3-4 inches thick, and they were just totally filled up with pictures. Well, she consolidated those pictures down to 4 albums that are now only about 1 inch thick, and I got them from her in the late 1990s, and I was able to digitize them. And I was very happy to be able to do that, because now I have all of her old photo albums digitally, because later on in life, she got dementia and she was just basically not all there. And she began going through her albums and saying, oh, this is a picture in so-and-so. I bet they'd love to have this picture. She'd pull it out of her album and she'd put it in an envelope and send it to that person. Of course, not realizing that that person had a copy of that picture already. And I remember I didn't realize she was doing this until she sent me a stack of about 15 pictures. I had copies of every single one of them, but she wanted me to have the pictures because they were of me and my family. And so that was just her reasoning at the time. But I want to tell you this before we get to the pictures. I wish fervently that I had had my mom sit down on the couch, maybe with me, maybe with some of my kids, her grandkids, and just gone through the album and point to every picture in the album and talk about that picture, because her memories are the best memories of those pictures. And I would love right now to have had her on video talking about those pictures, because here's what I would have done. I would have had a video camera set up, with some decent lighting, videoing her talking about the pictures in the album, and then later on, during processing of that video, I would then have those albums digitized, and when she started talking about a picture, I would then be able to bring that picture up on screen and have her talking as the narration as I showed on that video those pictures. And that would have been an absolute treasure to leave to my kids and to their kids and to my grandkids, my kids' kids. In any case, that's something I wish I had done. And if you have a parent that's with us still, that's still capable of talking like this, I would highly encourage you to take your old photo albums, to set them down in some good lighting and have them talk about each of the pictures in that album. It doesn't matter how long it takes, and get a video of it. And you can keep that and process it later after you digitize the photos that are in that album, but you'll have that memory that you'll never have again, and do it now before it's too late. Let's get going on the pictures in my mom's album number 1. As I said, I have 4 of these albums, and this album covers from her birth, a little bit before perhaps, all the way up through about 1944-45. I'm only going to show you this one album because there's 44 pictures in it, and I just don't want to put too much in this video. If you would like to see me do a video on these other albums, please leave me a comment down in the comment section below, and I will see if I can do that as well. But as of right now, the comments in this album are going to have to be mine and my memories of what she told me, because she is no longer with us. Let's get on to those videos. This is a picture of the house my mom lived in, their backyard. I believe this is in Wilmington, although it might be in Raleigh. My mom was very fond of pointing out to me the weeping willow tree that they had and the blue glass ball. They were very proud of that. This is the page of my mom's baby book that her parents filled out when she was a baby. You can pause it and zoom in and look at some of the items on here. This is the page 3 and 4 of the baby book, page 5 and 6 of the baby book. You can see the family tree on the left, and this is a lock of her hair when she was a baby. This is another page of the baby book. This is a picture of my mom on the left, her mother in the middle, and her sister on the right. Her sister was Marion Freeman, and that was her father's middle name. Her father's name was David Marion Darden, and they named the firstborn child Marion, and the second-born child, my mother, was Sarah Pat Darden. This is my mom as a baby. My mom is a baby with her father. Of course, you can't really see her father because of the hat. My mom and her mother. This is all in right about 1925. You can tell by the quality of the photos. It looks like Marion and my mom sitting on the front porch with their mom looking on. Or is it their dad? Or both of them? I can't tell. Another picture of my mom and her mother. This might be Marion and my mom and their Uncle Judd, which I believe was her mother's brother, but I'm not totally sure. I don't know who these people are. I'm sure my mom's in there somewhere. I wish she were here to tell us. Another picture of the baby. Marion and Sarah Pat and some other baby. It might be their younger brother David. I don't know. This is my grandfather on the right, and I believe it's my grandmother on the left, and I don't know who they're holding. That might be baby David. Now, my mom was born in 1925, and if that's my mom, she's only about a year old, which would put it in 1926, and look at the model of the car in the background. That car is probably a fairly new vehicle in 1926. This page has 8 images on it. The image in the upper right-hand corner looks like my mom with a dog. The next one over is my grandfather and one of his children with a dog. And this is my mom doing a back bend. She was very proud of being able to do a back bend even when I was alive, and this would have been in the early to mid 50s. She could do a back bend, and she sure showed it off. The next picture, my mom and her sister and somebody else on a swing set. My mom, the actress. Don't know what that one is. Bunch of kids. Another bunch of kids on the steps of some house. Look like they're in bathing attire. Another set of kids. This is my mom again, on display in her ballerina costume. I can't tell. Looks like she's, what, about 6 years old there? That would have been 1931, 32. My mom and her sister, probably the same day. 3 pictures on this page. The top one is my grandmother. Looks like she's sitting on the front porch of the house they had in Columbia, North Carolina. The second one is, I believe it's my grandmother. I can't tell for sure. And my grandmother with a baby. This page has 6 pictures on it. Looks like my grandmother with her 2 daughters. And the baby is labeled. It says, Brother David. Now, I don't know when David was born. I'm guessing it was in about 1932 or 33. Might have been a little bit later. The next one looks like my granddad in a bathing suit and his 2 daughters, my mom and her older sister. And here's the 2 girls next. This might be my grandmother with her son David, my mother's brother. And this is definitely my grandfather with one of the girls and the baby, who is probably David at this point. The next page is my mom's first grade class in Raleigh, North Carolina. And if you look over on the right-hand side, you can see she put an arrow above a little girl that is probably my mom. The next one is the 3rd grade class in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my mom here is in the lower left corner. You can look at the bottom and see the arrow pointing to her. Now, the 3rd grade class, if she got the 1st grade at 6 years old, 2nd grade at 7, here she's 8 years old, and 8 years old would have put this in 1933. Now, the Depression was in full swing at this time. Here's some more school pictures. Now they're in Wilmington, North Carolina, and my mom is in the 5th grade. I don't see an arrow pointing out which one she is in this. Oh, yes, I do. It's just to the left of center on the bottom. So there's my mom in the 5th grade. So she's about 11 years old there. The next one, she's probably about 14, 15 years old in the 8th grade, and it looks like some sort of ROTC cadet standing behind her. but this is one of the very first pictures where she starts really looking like my mom. And of course, there's a 8th grade class picture right down here on the bottom, and I don't see any arrow pointing out which one she is. So if you want to blow it up and pause the video, you can search and see if you can find her. This is the picture where she became a majorette in her high school band. My mom is on the very far right-hand side on this one. And the next one, there's a bunch of majorettes standing there. And then there's a picture of my grandmother, my mom's mom, and the 3 pictures across the bottom are my granddad. And it looks like my mom's brother David, my Uncle David, and then Uncle David playing with a hose with his father and an umbrella. Fun, fun. The 6 pictures on this page, the bottom ones you can see are kind of washed out. This is the house they lived in. I believe it is in Wilmington. It says our old house. It might be in Raleigh. The next picture looks like I can't quite read the writing. It might be Bob Hayward and me, but I'm sure this is another high school picture. And we have a washed out picture of my mom with some of her friends, and another washed out picture with my mom and some other friends, looks like another Army person or a cadet, and then washed out pictures on the bottom. They have writing at the top. The one on the left says David and me, and the one on the right says me in Burnt Hill. I can't really make that out. 6 pictures on this page. There's my mom at the top left. There's my mom getting out of a car down on the top right. The second one down on the right is my aunt, my mom's sister, Marion. I don't really know what the picture is. It looks like it's got a frame around it. I'm not really going to worry about that. Then looks like a picture of my mom going in a door. I can make out the 1930s style shoes she's wearing. And then a picture of my mom. Looks like a little bit older. This page has got 7 pictures on it. Looks like their old house again. And then my grandmother again. Then another one of their old house. And then it looks like my grandmother, maybe with my mom. And this, of course, would be in about the 30s. You can tell that by looking at the car. The next one on the bottom left, that's my mom with her brother David. The next one is my mom with some other child. We don't know who that is. And, of course, my mom playing with a baseball bat. And we can see a shadow of somebody who's taking the picture down on the bottom. Next page, we have, looks like my grandmother with 2 young men. We don't really know who they are. Maybe it's my granddad on the right. Don't know who that is on the left. And now my mom is in some sort of glamour pose in the upper right-hand corner. I believe the cutout picture of my mom with a bouquet of roses is from her wedding, and it's just kind of out of place chronologically here. My mom told me about this picture of her mother with this giant cake and some army person, but I forgot the story on that. I wish I could remember it so I could share it with you. And then, of course, in the middle, there's my mom just standing there getting a nice picture taken. And on the bottom is my mom with an army person, and then my mom on a motorcycle. At this time, it was probably in the late 30s, and the war was cranking up, World War II. And my mom here in the upper left, don't know how old she is there, but she's obviously a pretty mature teenager. I would say about 17, wouldn't you? Hard to think of your mom being 17 years old, you know what I mean? And there's just some more pictures of my mom. And the one that's labeled St. Mary's, that was a college my mom went to for 2 years. She took stenography. The lower left, I believe that's my mom at a USO dance. The USO was a big thing for young ladies of the day and service members, United Services Organization, and they had dances to get people together. A lot of pictures on this page. The upper left, it says Dad, and I'm pretty sure it means her dad, and that's my granddad in the boat. I'm not going to comment on all these pictures, but we can just see that we have some bathing beauties, and we have some beach scenes and some fun recreation scenes. The picture that's labeled David, that's her brother, not me. And then some glamour shots of my mom posing, and my mom with a service member who is not my dad. This is probably about 1940 or so. My mom is 15 years old.
here's my granddad and my grandmother with their dog, which looks like a Dalmatian. Another picture of my grandmother, my granddad, and their son David, and I'm thinking that the baby they're holding is my cousin Daniel, who was the firstborn son of my mother's sister Marion. My granddad in the snow with, I believe, the same baby, Daniel. And this is my mom attending a wedding. I think this is a wedding of her sister Marion, but it might be her own wedding. I'm not sure. They're not in totally chronological order, but they are somewhat. And here's the wedding party for whatever that wedding is. And here's my mom posing with a service member, probably at a USO dance. The label in the bottom right-hand corner says 19 years old. So 19 years old, she was born in 25, so this would have been 1944. Yeah, the war is going on big time at this point. And finally, we meet my dad. This is my dad in the upper left-hand corner, in the upper right-hand corner. Matter of fact, I believe that's my dad in all these pictures. And these are some pictures my dad sent her of some of the Army equipment. And my dad standing with the equipment. And I believe one of the shots in the upper right-hand corner is in Europe. And here's my dad and my mom. They may be cutting their wedding cake. And my dad in his Army uniform. They got married in 1945. And some more pictures of them together. And smoochy, smoochy. And here's some more pictures of my mom and dad just having fun, posing. And here's my mom's wedding announcement. And this looks like the same sort of outfit she was wearing in that previous photo. Don't you agree? And here is the wedding announcement. You can pause the video and zoom it in if you want to read it.
And there we have the videos of my mom's album #1. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. I didn't make it for the people out there in YouTube land who are watching this, but you're welcome to watch it. I made it for my kids, I made it for my grandkids, and I made it for my grandkids' kids whenever they have them, so they will have a little bit more insight into our family's history. And that's what we have in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.